I'm Dana Denha, and you're watching FYI. 2024 was a year of celebration, a time to reflect on the past, to influence the future. Ann Arbor is over 200 years old, and people honor this area with events dedicated to A2. In December, the Bicentennial came to a close with one last opportunity to revel in the city that means so much to many.
We've been celebrating the Bicentennial here in Ann Arbor all year, and this is our closing event here at Skyline High School.
We believe we should imagine what the city can be like over the next several decades, and having this celebration is sort of the spark that leads us to those things.
For everybody who loves Ann Arbor, loves the kind of small urban feel that the downtown has, and hope that we can celebrate and support that particular dynamic.
The theme for the evening is the next 100 years. We have pieces of art that's been created by some of the professional artists in the community around that theme.
In the Commons area, individuals can go in and talk about their feelings about the city of Ann Arbor and what they know about the past and what they hope for the future.
It's an amazingly sophisticated, for a small town especially, and diverse community to experience a lot of different things.
Our students in the Ann Arbor Public Schools have had a great time researching how all the schools started and the history of the schools, some going back over 100 years. And so it's been a very eclectic gathering and being able to engage a lot of folks in the Bicentennial.
The university, in combination with the civic dynamics, make this place a very, very special place to live and work and enjoy family and times together.
Stay tuned, and we'll be back with more in exactly 30 seconds. The Ann Arbor Community Academy gives the residents a deeper look at the inner workings of city government. Interested individuals can sign up now through February 17th and learn more about the A2AC in this month's City Roundup.
Hi, my name is Sarah Lanise with the City of Ann Arbor Clerk's Office. Today, I'm going to tell you about the Ann Arbor Community Academy. The Community Academy is a program where community members interested in the city's long-term plans and day-to-day operations have a chance to participate in interactive sessions with city staff across different departments. City staff hopes participants will be motivated to play a more active role in shaping the future of Ann Arbor after participating in this program. Graduates from our academy are highly involved in our community and currently serve on City Council, the City Planning Commission, the Public Art Commission, and as election inspectors. You can find more information, including how to sign up, at a2gov.org/A2CA.
Winter brings extreme weather patterns. The commute to a location can be smooth sailing, while the ride home brings dangerous driving conditions. It's important to know how to navigate these conditions and be prepared with an emergency kit if things go awry. Joining me is Chris Hunter, senior trial attorney at Michigan Auto Law. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being here.
Can you tell us how the winter weather impacts driving in Michigan? Because as someone that works for Michigan Auto Law, you have to see how the weather conditions really impact people on the roads. And I would assume a day like today wouldn't be a great day to be driving.
It's funny you say that because it literally just started snowing outside. So perfect example. So maybe we start off with a stat or two. I mean, Michigan is not unique among the states. However, winter weather causes more crashes in Michigan for some odd reason. And these crashes have increased from year to year. So I just a general stat, the weather related crashes increased 27% from 24,237 crashes. That's a staggering number of crashes
Yeah.
from 2020 to 2021, all the way up to 30,786 reported incidents from 2022 to 2023. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, and the horrible thing, and this is not a good stat, the fatalities, fatal winter crashes increased 25%. While the number may not seem low, the toll on life is never good. That went from 47 from 2021 to 59 deaths in 2022 to 2023.
I,
So
out of curiosity, I wonder, because obviously in Michigan, the weather patterns have obviously changed, and we don't get as much snow as we once did. And so I wonder, as we get new drivers on the road, like people that are 16 or just getting their license for the first time, that don't deal with the winter weather as much because it's just not happening as much in Michigan as it used to, and they're not used to it the way maybe some of us who have been driving for the last couple decades plus have been.
I think that's a fair statement. So interestingly, I spoke with some high school students about this exact phenomenon, and this is just my opinion. I think there are two factors. One is exactly what you're talking about, which is the younger drivers, the 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, they don't have that long experience driving in winter snow. Michigan now, we don't get this long winter that started back in October and goes through March. We get sporadic bouts of snow. So we're not experienced in driving in the winter conditions anymore. The second one, and this is again just my personal opinion, I think a lot of people forgot how to drive post-COVID, and it's not a knock uh, on anything in particular. It's just that we had a break from driving, and now it seems like we're more of a rush to get places faster. We're a little bit less polite than we used to for whatever reason post-COVID, and we've seen a spark, an increase in crashes, not just during the winter periods, but overall in general. So I think
Hmm.
both factors probably play a role in that.
I will say, on a personal level, I do feel like I was a more confident driver pre-COVID because I didn't drive a lot during it. But my biggest issue is I don't know if it's because I wear glasses all the time or what, but I feel like at night driving, it's very glary. So I get a little anxious when I'm driving at night. And then when you compound that with the winter weather, you're like white knuckling it while you're driving, basically.
Right? You bring up a really good point. So nighttime driving in winter weather is also very different because with ice and snow, you have refraction. So it does completely change the dynamics. And frankly, as we get older, it is more difficult to see. Our perception takes longer for us. So a whole lot of factors. I agree with you. I think that all plays into it, and it's something we just need to learn to be aware of and improve.
Yeah, I will say I was in Sterling Heights and I live in Ann Arbor and I drove there. It was for around Christmas time and I the weather there was totally fine. I had my two kids in the car. I was totally fine. It starts like a winter storm kind of thing. It's like a mix. It's just like really bad rain and fog. It's not as much snow, but I will say when I was like 22 driving in that, it wouldn't have bothered me the way it bothered me. And I think also, I don't know about other people, but having kids in the car makes you more anxious too because you're responsible for not just your life, but you're responsible for everybody's life in the car.
Well, I completely agree with you. And for some reason, the first couple snows in Michigan lead to a lot more crashes. I and I think part of that's just we forget that we have to drive differently in snow and ice. We forget that even when the temperature is above freezing, the roads can still freeze. So even at 40 degrees outside, these overpasses can freeze. And coming from Ann Arbor to Sterling Heights, you're actually hitting a couple places uh, with high overpasses, and that can be very dangerous. Um, it's interesting we talk about that. The other place is if you were heading south from Ann Arbor towards Ohio, uh, there's one section where on both sides you have farmland, and that road very typically freezes over. We see a lot of crashes there. I had an ice experience on that same patch of road. It's right around mile road 22, if I'm remembering. But yeah, because we forget there's nothing there protecting the road. You have the wind coming across, and it's causing ice, even though outside it's 40 degrees.
Yeah, you're so right. There are roads that are just worse that you have to be more careful of and mindful of. And if you don't travel those roads often, you don't really know. So it's better to just err on the side of caution. And like, I feel like the following distance is the most important thing in these scenarios where like you're not speeding, but you're also not close to the car in front of you because you might have to hit your brakes at some point.
So that's actually true. So we have a law in Michigan, which is interesting. It's driving too fast for conditions. Uh, we're all familiar with driving too closely behind somebody, or like, hey, I didn't leave enough space, or impeding traffic. We've all heard of these type of things, but we actually have a law in Michigan which is driving too fast for conditions. So you may think, well, the speed limit's 55 and I'm going 55, so hey, I'm fine. But that's not the law. The law says that you have to drive a careful and prudent speed, not greater than or less than reasonable and proper, having due regard to the traffic, surface, and width of the highway. So it's a little nebulous, but it's kind of one of those common sense laws where, we understand if there's a reason, a heavy downpour of rain, snow, ice, fog, you really shouldn't be going the speed limit. You need to use your common sense and drive in a reasonable manner. And if you don't, you're going to get a ticket for it.
Well, and you're endangering so many lives when you do it, honestly. Like you said, the stats for fatalities has gone up, and you don't want to be a fatality, and you don't want to be responsible for one either.
It's part of being it's part of being part of the community. I know that sounds redundant, but when you are part of the community, you're not responsible for just yourself, you're responsible for the entire community. And that means watching for other people, being a kind driver, avoiding the road rage. Look, I get upset like everybody else when we're driving. I
Can't
do.
help it. It happens to
It
everyone sometimes.
happens. Some guy cuts me off or some gal cuts me off. I'm mad. But then I have to remember, what am I really doing? If I'm 30 seconds later, does it really make a difference? And even changing your speed, we'll say from 70 miles an hour to 65 or 60 miles an hour, the actual time saved is seconds. That's it. It's not minutes. It's not significant. And we have to remind ourselves of that these small changes make huge differences.
Well, and you were talking about this Michigan law that I didn't actually know existed, that you are supposed to sort of common sense slow down when it's bad weather conditions. But I've noticed that, like, if you're on one of the expressways that have one of those electronic signs, they'll tell you. They won't tell you how fast to go, but they'll be like, slow down. The weather's bad. And they'll be like, expect a slower commute. They are telling you as you go, like, you need to listen to us. And I agree with it. I actually like those signs. And I like that they're telling me what's going on, how long it's going to take me to get from one expressway to the next, all that.
I love those too. My wife has colloquially dubbed those the Pez dispensers of wisdom, because when you're driving down, it says in rain and snow, drive slower. I mean, very common sense things,
Yeah.
but I do like those. I think it's a nice reminder, and frankly, I wish people would pay more attention to that.
Well, and they're a nice reminder. They tell you before the weather happens that it's going to happen. They know. I mean, the weather service is letting you know that there's going to be a snowstorm. So those signs will be like preemptively be like, expect a slower commute on your way
Right.
home.
Exactly. I'm completely on board with you in that.
Yeah. So another thing is it's not just about snow though, it's rain too, because we all know we're probably nowadays in Michigan we probably experience more rain than snow a lot of times. I mean, today there's like the third time I can think of a real snow we've had this year. But rain on the other hand is a different story, and you could be hydroplaning, like you just don't know what's going to happen in the rain.
So let's talk about that. I think one preventative measure that's so easy, check your tires. I mean, it's kind of one of those old tricks. You take a penny and you stick it into the tread of the tire, and if you can see Lincoln's head, it's time to invest in some new tires. I mean, simple things like that. Bald tires in any condition with weather are just not great. If the roads were perfectly dry, then yeah, bald tires are fantastic. That's why race cars have bald tires.
Yeah.
However, if you've ever seen a race take place in the rain, it's horrible. There's absolutely no traction.
Well, I have a husband that has a car that's basically a race car, and he's got his winter tires and he's got his summer tires, so I know all about it. But I personally didn't realize that my tires were like bald, and this was probably about a year ago. And I went because I had like I needed a patch or something. They're like, dude, we are not giving you a patch on these tires. And it was in the winter, and I got my tires replaced, and it made the biggest difference. I couldn't even tell you. I had no idea how big of a difference that would make for me.
And here's another one. It's so one, obviously we want you to have good tires. Check your tires. But here's another small thing. Check the tire pressure because the tire pressure changes
Mm-hmm.
from summer to winter because of the conditions outside. It's cold outside, the tire pressure drops. And again, we don't think of these things, and it's such a small thing to do. A lot of cars right now actually tell you what your tire pressure is, and you can say, "Whoa, it's cold outside. My tire pressure really dropped. Do I have the correct pressure?" And that will make a
Mm-hmm.
huge difference as well. Generally, it doesn't cost you anything to put air in the tires, and it can save lives at a later time.
Yeah, all that stuff, checking your fluid. I mean, if you don't have enough fluid in your windshield wipers and it's snowy outside, all of a sudden you can't see out of your window anymore. All that stuff you think like, oh, whatever, I'll take care of it tomorrow, whatever. Like just keep pushing it off. But it's all very true. And you need like your car to be in tip-top shape this time of year because it does make a huge difference. And it would make the difference between you being the person that causes a crash or not.
All those things, and just general car maintenance. You want to make sure your heater works, your defroster's functioning properly. You'll take the time to actually get the ice off of your vehicle, as opposed to driving with that huge
Oh,
frosted.
yeah, you're like, oh, I'll just stick my head out the window.
Exactly. Or I have that little hole in the front I can see through.
Yeah.
And you take the time. That couple minutes can save a life, and it really is not going to affect your schedule a whole lot.
What about, I have an emergency kit in my car, but I don't know if I have all the stuff I need in it. Like what are some of the things that you guys suggest in case, I think this is more so if you get in an accident or an accident by yourself and you're on the side of the road, you're stuck and you might need jumper cables, waters, blankets. What else you need in there?
Sure. So let's go through the basics, and that's a great question. So in the winter, warm clothing, work gloves, and that's an all season thing. Reflective clothing, because we don't think about that. If you have to exit the car, a blanket or a sleeping bag. Some of the things you mentioned are great, like non-perishable food and snacks, maybe water. But then there are some things which should just be in your car in general, like a flashlight with batteries, charged batteries, not dead batteries, a cell phone and a charger so you can call for help. In the winter, snow shovel, an ice scraper. Some people put sand in your car. And this is great. You'll see a lot of pickup truck owners put sand in the back of their car because it gives them nice weight. But it can also help you get out of snow if you're stuck in the snow. I hear a lot of people say you can use kitty litter for that as well. Uh, Jumper cables, something that should just be in every vehicle. Uh, Flares is kind of one of, that's great if you can do it. I don't know that I'd highly recommend it. Uh, Definitely a first aid kit, extra boots and mittens, and a hat in the winter. So those would be our recommendations.
Mm-hmm. And then what about, obviously there's snow plows and you're sharing the road with snow plows. Are there signals on the snow plow that you should know what they mean? And what's the best way to sort of share the road with them? Like do you move out of their way like an emergency vehicle? I'm not really sure.
So that's a fantastic question. And Michigan has a brand new snowplow law. This law just took effect July 8th, 2024, so 6 months ago. I and for any geeks out there, it's MCL 257 643B. We kind of put it right in the middle of another law. And this one says that for anyone driving a motor vehicle behind a snowplow, you have to give that snowplow 200 feet. Now, I know probably you and I have done this throughout our times. We're like, a couple car lengths is enough. We don't have to worry about it. And the plow's kicking up snow, or we want to go around that snow plow. But the new law says 200 feet. So just to give you an idea, if your average vehicle is 10 feet in length, you're talking 20 vehicles.
So you should like be like a road length behind this thing.
That's quite a long distance.
Yeah.
And now it's a little different. So if the snowplow is stopped at an intersection, now it's 20 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So so it does change if the plow is stopped. Yeah, we don't want people 200 feet away at a stop sign or an intersection from the snow.
Yeah, you'd be really causing a ruckus at that light then.
Oh my gosh, you would. Now this is interesting because the law also carries some teeth to it. So if you are caught doing this, you can get a civil infraction. So it's a traffic ticket, but it's still $100 fine.
I
So
didn't know that was a new law even. So that's great information. First of all, I had no idea. I would never be that far behind a snowplow because I just had no clue. But now I know. So it's good. It's a great information to have.
And I don't think a lot of people know about this. Like I said, it just took effect July 8th of 24, so it is a brand new law. And I agree with you. Up until, I was told about meeting you and having this interview, I'm like, wow, I don't know that I stay 200 feet away from a snowplow, but I certainly will at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I want them to do their job to the best of their ability without any hindrance from any of us.
Yeah, that's a great question, Dana. Thank you for asking me that.
Yeah, I think that's really good information that a lot of people will need to know. The other thing that we were sort of talking about this beforehand, and it's something that I deal with personally because I have a kid in a car seat. But one of the things I've learned since I had my first kid 8 years ago was that children that are in like a harnessed car seat should not wear a coat because it's like too thick. It's like you can't tighten them enough in the car seat. But I will say this is something that people always, I don't know if it's like a generational thing or what, but like older generational people always give me a hard time about my son not having a coat on when I walk out of a place to the car. And it's like, it's something that you just have to explain to people a lot. But can you talk about that a little bit more?
Sure. So every time I hear this, I envisioned a scene from A Christmas Story when he's in the snow, just
Yes.
can't walk. Uh,
Randy.
exactly. But the reason this has a great vision for us to remember is it changes the effect of the car seat. When you add those layers, when you add the puffy jacket, it makes the car seat less effective because the straps are not against the body. The straps are now pushed out because of clothing, and the child can move within the seat. So you don't want that puffy jacket because it has to compress before the child seat can actually do its job. Without clothing, those straps are right against the child, and there's a lot more protection. It's allowing the seat to do what it's designed to do, and that's protect the child in the event of a sudden or abrupt stop.
And my suggestion is to bring a blanket. Like I already have blankets in my car, but I always keep a blanket for the baby because I know he's not in a coat. So I put a blanket over him after he's in the car seat.
Exactly. And it's great. You should have a blanket in your car anyways. So this is one of those functions where you kind of get two for one. It's there for protection and it's there to keep your baby warm. So
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean, because they also are, I mean, it's a lot different than it used to be. They're rear facing now, so they're not necessarily getting the heat pumping on them in the car. So they probably do need that blanket as well.
exactly. And that's great. It's something we don't think about, but clothing really does change the effect of the safety of those car seats. And it's simply, a matter of physics. The further you away you are from the seat belt and the strap that's holding the child in, the less effective the car seat is, the more movement it allows the child to have. And that
And as we
movement is
discussed
great.
earlier, we already know that the dangers are heavier this time of year. So you don't want to put your baby in more danger when you could potentially have more of a risk to get in an accident in the winter.
Exactly. That's a really good point.
We're almost out of time, but if you want to add anything else, any other tips that you want to give drivers during this time of year?
Sure. So one last thing we didn't talk about is, okay, we're on a snowy road, and now the vehicle is slipping. What do I do? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you generally steer the direction that you want the front wheels to go. So if the rear wheels are turning to the left, you will actually steer to the left.
Mm-hmm.
I- And sometimes this can be the exact opposite of what we think. Some people, your car's starting to go to the left, so we immediately yank the car to the right, and we actually cause the car to spin out. So we generally say no quick movements. When you feel that you're on that ice, the first thing you do is you check your brakes. You don't slam on the brakes. If you have those anti-lock brakes, ABS, you'll feel the thumping of the brakes and you know
Mm-hmm.
they're working. If your car is older and doesn't have anti-lock brakes, you need to pump the brakes gently. You don't want to slam on those brakes. It will not help.
Do you find that cars that have that traction control button that's helpful? Like my car has that button you can turn it on and off that says it's traction. Do you think that it helps people in these scenarios?
I really do think it helps. The thing which, I don't think most people know, but is a common misconception. People say, I have four-wheel drive, and I'm going to pop that truck into four-wheel drive. That's actually more dangerous than an all-wheel drive vehicle. So when you put a vehicle into four-wheel drive, you're powering each wheel, you're actually more likely to slide yourself off the road. I was making that trek that you were talking about from Ann Arbor towards Plymouth, and M14 is very, very well known for icing over, causing a lot of crashes. And I'm going along in my all-wheel drive vehicle doing great. In front of me are these four-wheel drive Blazers. I won't use the name. In front of me are these four-wheel drive trucks, and we just watched them slide right off the road because they thought, I'm going to put this into four-wheel drive and save myself some time.
Mm-hmm.
So all-wheel drive is very different. All-wheel drive is fantastic. That traction control button, yes, it really does work. I had a car with that, and I did take it out, and I tried it with the traction control. I tried it without, just to see what it does. And I think that's a good point as well. Uh, I'm not sure I'm going to recommend this to everybody. When I was a very young driver, my dad did take me to an empty parking lot and said, let's learn how to control a skid.
Mm-hmm.
Let's learn how to control the vehicle. And this was a stick shift car, rear wheel drive. So that tells you how long ago it was.
Yeah, yeah.
But that was important. We actually learned. And I think the same is true. We can do those things in safe manner, and we can educate younger drivers how to control those brakes and what to do in those situations before they get into them in real life.
Well, we're out of time, but thank you so much, Chris. This has been a very enlightening conversation.
I've had a great time. I really appreciate the invitation.
For more on this and other programs, visit a2gov.org/CTN, visit youtube.com/CTN Ann Arbor to see all that we have to offer. And remember to like, subscribe, and ring that notification. Thanks for watching and tune in next time to FYI.